DA Willis announced the indictment Monday after 11:30 Eastern Time at a press conference in Atlanta about 2 hours after it was handed to the judge.
Today, based on information developed by that investigation, a Fulton County grand jury returned a true bill of indictment, charging 19 individuals with violations of Georgia law arising from a criminal conspiracy to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election in this state. The indictment includes 41 felony counts and is 97 pages long. Please remember that everyone charged in this bill of indictment is presumed innocent. Specifically, the indictment brings felony charges against Donald John Trump, Rudolph William Louis Giuliani, John Charles Eastman, Mark Randall Meadows, John Cheeseborough, Jeffrey Clark. Every individual charged in the indictment is charged with one count of violating Georgia's Racketeer, Influenced, and Corrupt Organizations Act through participation in a criminal enterprise in Fulton County, Georgia, and elsewhere to accomplish the illegal goal of allowing Donald J. Trump to seize the presidential term of office beginning on January 20th, 21. Specifically, the participants in association took various actions in Georgia and elsewhere to block the counting of the votes of the presidential electors who were certified as the winners of Georgia's 2020 general election.
I want to bring in Alina Habba now, spokesperson for the president. Alina, good to have you on. Speaking to the president tonight, you got any word from him at this point?
I have spoken with the president. You know, what can you expect him to be saying? This is the same as every other week for him, unfortunately. And I know that we were not surprised. You weren't surprised. I wasn't surprised by this. Most certainly he wasn't. We know their games. We see the barricades go up. We see the PR people get ready. We see the campaign websites get fixed and uploaded last week by Fannie. So that says it all to me. This is just a show. And the fact that there were cameras behind the scenes, behind a judge's office, it's a despicable situation in Georgia. This to me, frankly, disturbed me more than any of the others, to be honest.
Former President Trump's legal spokeswoman, Alina Habba, Fox News contributor, Kellyanne Conway. Alina, I start with you. You've had a day, and your legal team has had a day to absorb all this. The morning after the night before, beyond the double standard, what are you thinking?
I think it's been obvious. I'm hoping that the American people are picking up on what is exactly going on. I think that it's hard not to at this point. You know, I keep thinking to myself, Sean, what am I going to say to the American people outside the courthouse for indictment number 4? You know, I'm his spokeswoman. I'm general counsel for the PAC, and I sit here and have literally litigated tons of cases for this man and watched how different the courts treat him and how his due process rights were frankly violated yesterday. And what we saw was an indictment come out before the grand jury even had a chance to vote. That's un-American, it's improper, and it's obvious, for lack of better words. So I'm hoping the American people get it at this point, Sean. I think you and I, we fight hard, and Kellyanne and everybody that goes on these programs to try and give a little piece of reality of what is occurring. But it's up to you to open your eyes and really see that we have a dual system of justice. It's not a joke. And if we love this country and we don't want to be Cuba, we better get out and vote in 24 and vote for the right person.
Alina Habba has stated that it is intentional that the Georgia case be heard outside of federal court. What does that mean?
Here's why Trump's 4th indictment is different. Unlike his other 3 indictments, the case in Georgia relies on RICO laws, which stands for
Racketeer, Influenced, and Corrupt Organizations Act.
It requires prosecutors to show a pattern of criminal activity rather than an isolated crime. In Trump's case, prosecutors are claiming he and 18 of his allies were part of a criminal enterprise to overturn the results of the 2020 election. The indictment covers a call Trump made in 2021 to Georgia's Secretary of State.
I just want to find 11,780 votes.
It also details efforts by Trump's campaign to recruit new presidential electors to try and switch Georgia's results from Biden to Trump. Because this indictment is based on RICO, the stakes are higher, since it carries a minimum sentence of 5 years and can go up to 20 years in prison. And because it's at the state level, there's a chance we could have a criminal trial of a sitting president if Trump wins the election in 2024.
Joining us now to assess is Harvard Law professor and author of his new book, Get Trump, Alan Dershowitz. Perfect timing for your book, Professor. But this whole idea of them leaking the actual charges that end up being the real indictment hours prior, and then they're walking back saying we had no idea, we're just playing around testing the system. Number one, do you buy that? And number two, does that somehow help Trump's case, saying that they've already predetermined the outcome of this?
Of course, I don't buy it. It was a Freudian leak. It was a way of telling that it really doesn't matter whether the grand jury votes or doesn't vote. It's really the prosecutor who indicts. So there was an indictment. The prosecutor asked for it. She was going to get it. All the grand jury does is rubber stamp 23 chairs moved around by the prosecutor. So actually, they performed a public service by making it clear to all of us that you do not take seriously a grand jury indictment. Don't ever say, oh, 23 people considered this and indicted. No, they don't even vote on it before the indictment is issued. It's just the prosecutor's decision. And it's a terrible decision because the indictment itself is awful. It's an act of creativity. It reads to me like an exam answer to a question in law school. How creative can we be? How much can we stretch the statute? We'll use RICO. Yeah, it was intended for organized crime, but we'll use it for a political campaign. You know what we're going to do? We're going to indict Mark Meadows, even though he only was involved in one phone call, but we're going to make him sit for 3 months through a trial, and maybe his name will be mentioned once. It's an outrageous indictment, and it should be dismissed, but it won't be because it's in Georgia. The only way justice will be gotten is if some of the defendants, and only some of them, can move to have the trial removed to federal court. Trump can do that. Meadows can do that. Giuliani can't do that. In order to move it into federal court, you have to be a federal official at the time of the alleged crime, and the alleged crime has to be within the scope of your duty and authority. In Meadows' case, it's easy. He was listening in on a phone call. That's his job. He's the chief of staff. So he may very well succeed, but we'll wait and see.
Professor, in your very qualified expert opinion, will Trump do jail time because of this one or any of them?
I don't think he'll do jail time in any of them, even though in this one, he has a mandatory prison sentence if he's convicted, and he very likely will be convicted by a jury that has, 3-1 Republicans over Democrats. But I think he'll get bail pending appeal, and I think the appellate court will reverse the conviction. I think that's true in the New York case as well. He'll get convicted in New York because in New York they'll convict a ham sandwich if his name is Trump. And I think he may get a hung jury or an acquittal in Florida. And District of Columbia, there'll be a conviction too. But those cases will go to the courts of appeals and ultimately the Supreme Court, where I think common sense and the rule of law may very well prevail.
Professor, about 20 seconds or so, does this all go down literally before the 2024, November of 2024?
Probably not. The prosecutor in Georgia lied to the American public, to the media, and to her people when she said she's trying to bring this case to trial within 6 months. It's impossible. She knows that. She looked us in the eye and she lied through her teeth. Isn't that ironic? In a case she's bringing, charging Donald Trump with lying, she starts the case by lying, by absolutely lying about 6 months. It can't happen. I've been doing this for 60 years. I've never heard of a case of this complexity being tried within 6 months.
But, stranger things have happened. As your book says, they're out to what? Get Trump. Alan Dershowitz.
Get Trump.
Alan Dershowitz, thank you for joining us.